The self-appointed HOA patrol cornered my wife at the end of our driveway, barking orders like they were law enforcement. They thought the little badges on their vests gave them power. She didn't even raise her voice, just smiled. Because they had no idea who they were talking to. My name's Mark, and for 20 years my wife Elena trained special operations teams, the people you call when everything's already gone wrong. After retiring, we wanted peace, a quiet lakefront home, friendly neighbors, birds instead of sirens. We found it in a community called Ridgepoint Lakes, complete with a mandatory HOA that promised safety and order. At first, things were fine. The lawns were green, the newsletters polite. But it didn't take long to learn that order meant obedience. The HOA president, Robert Kane, ran the neighborhood like a private army. He even organized a volunteer security unit, middle-aged men with radios, reflective vests, and way too much free time. They loved to drive around at night, flashing lights and quoting made-up regulations. We ignored them until one day they didn't ignore us. When Elena refused to pay a mysterious patrol fee, Robert marked us as uncooperative. Soon, we were getting warning letters for imaginary violations: trash cans too visible, grass half an inch too tall, vehicle parked improperly. It would have been funny if they hadn't started following her car through the neighborhood. I told her we could file a complaint. She just said, no need. Let them keep playing security. She knew something I didn't yet. It started small. One morning she was out jogging when two of Robert's officers stopped her. They demanded to see her HOA identification card. She laughed and said, I live here. That's my ID. They didn't like that. Later that day, a formal letter arrived accusing her of non-compliance during a patrol safety check. Elena framed it and hung it on the fridge like a trophy. But the harassment grew. They parked outside our house monitoring suspicious activity. They photographed our license plates. And then one evening, when she returned from the grocery store, 3 of them blocked our driveway with their SUV. From the window I saw her stop, say something brief, and fold her arms. I started walking out the front door, but she raised one hand to stop me. Whatever she said next made them freeze. Within seconds, the men got back in their vehicle and drove away without another word. When I asked what happened, she shrugged. I told them to radio their coordinator, she said. Then I gave them my credentials. What credentials? She smiled. Let's just say their coordinator used to attend my defensive tactics classes. That was the first time I realized this wasn't going to end the way Robert expected. 2 days later, Robert showed up at our porch with a clipboard and a grin. Your wife was disrespectful to our security team, he said. They're volunteers trying to keep the community safe. Elena didn't answer right away. She simply invited him to sit down calmly, like she was interviewing him. Robert, she said, these men followed me, blocked my vehicle, and tried to detain me on my property. That's not security. That's harassment. He leaned back, smug. The board authorizes them to enforce community safety standards. She handed him a folder. According to State Statute 17A, no HOA has the authority to detain or question residents. That's impersonation of law enforcement. And since they used radios on city frequencies, it's also a communications violation. Robert blinked. You're bluffing. Then you should call your lawyer before I call mine. That night, an email blast went out to the entire neighborhood claiming certain residents were hostile to community safety. We knew who they meant. Fine. Let them try. Because Elena wasn't hostile. She was patient and meticulous. She began documenting everything: patrol schedules, vehicle tags, radio chatter, even their so-called incident reports. What she was building wasn't anger. It was a case. A month later, a real police cruiser rolled up our street, this time, officially. 2 officers stepped out with a warrant to review HOA security operations. Turns out, Elena had quietly sent her documentation to the County Compliance Division, along with a formal complaint from a former HOA member who'd quit in disgust. The police confiscated the patrol radios and found they'd been using city emergency frequencies without authorization, a serious offense. The badges were fake, the patrol fund came from misused HOA fees, and the vehicle insurance was non-existent. Robert tried to claim it was all community volunteering. The city called it fraudulent representation. When the officers left, Robert stood on the sidewalk staring at Elena. "You did this," he said quietly. She nodded. "No, Robert. You did." Within a week, the HOA's security division was disbanded. City officials froze their bank account pending audit. And suddenly the warning letters stopped appearing in our mailbox. But the fallout was only beginning. Once the neighborhood learned that their dues had funded fake badges and illegal radio use, the residents turned on the board. Emergency meetings filled the community center night after night. People wanted answers and refunds. When the audit results came in, they showed thousands of dollars spent on equipment that didn't exist. Robert and 2 board members faced fines for financial mismanagement and were removed by vote. The city appointed an interim administrator until a new board could be elected. Guess who they invited to oversee community safety training during the transition? Elena. She refused at first, but they insisted. So she agreed on one condition: no fake patrols, no intimidation, and total transparency. Her first act was to organize a community awareness workshop. She taught residents how to handle real emergencies, how to communicate with proper authorities, and how to recognize when someone oversteps their role. The irony? Half the former patrol members attended. They apologized genuinely, saying they'd only been following Robert's lead. Elena accepted every apology with grace. "That's what discipline looks like," she told me later. "It's not about strength. It's about control." Life slowly returned to normal. The new HOA board actually focused on things that mattered: fixing the park benches, cleaning the trails, hosting potlucks. Neighbors started waving again instead of whispering. Robert's house went up for sale within 3 months. Rumors said he moved to another community with better management. One evening, as we sat by the lake watching the sunset reflect off the water, I asked her why she'd never lost her temper through any of it. She smiled. "Because anger's loud. Authority doesn't have to be." The next morning, a thank you card arrived from the interim board. Inside was a single sentence: "For reminding us that leadership means service, not control." She tucked it into her training manual, a quiet reminder that justice doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes, it comes from composure. They tried to act like officers, but she showed them what real discipline looks like. Power without integrity collapses fast. And in a neighborhood obsessed with control, it took one calm, capable woman to teach them that respect isn't commanded, it's earned.